Good evening, everyone, and welcome for another episode of Let's Talk with Tammy brought to you by BK9 Resources. So, Let's Talk serves as an extension of the Women of Essence series, and in which inspiring women from all walks of life are brought in to conduct seminars and workshops for underprivileged women. So, this show will also feature interesting personalities to share with you bite-sized insights into relevant topics. I'm Tammy. I'm a lecturer by profession, a scientist at heart, and Ms Sharan Malaysia 2019. Now, my basis for the show has always been everything about learning from my guests, and so I hope you do too by the end of every episode. So tonight we are definitely going to learn a lot. So let me bring in my guest before I introduce her properly. Hello, Sharon. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Okay, you are lagging a little bit.
Yes, I can hear you, but I think it's a bit laggy.
It's a bit like, yeah. Thank you so much for being
Yeah,
here tonight.
yeah, it's
Can you hear me?
no worries.
Yeah, it's lagging a lot. Okay, so basically, I think based on the poster that I've shared, we are going to talk about transgender people and the issues that they are facing in Malaysia. And there are 70,000 approximately transgender people in Malaysia, and this number is as of 2017. The number is from a nation-led census, but obviously only a handful are able to speak up for themselves, and they are most of the time treated very poorly solely because the authorities fail to play their roles with due diligence, and some of them had no choice but to make their lives public just so that people can actually see the reality that they're facing day in day out, right? So Ms Sharan is one of the 70,000, and each day she breaks barriers and stereotypes, and she's a woman of vision trying to achieve equality by educating society through whatever means possible. She's currently a manager in a corporate sector, and her former engagements involved acting, activism, and advocacy. And I'm one of those people who are privileged enough to be her Facebook friend for quite a number of years now, and I've been educated a lot by her well thought, well researched, well put Facebook posts. So thank you so much for that, Sharon, for doing your part in trying to, educate us and to really give us an insight into how it is to be a transgender in Malaysia.
No worries, Tammy. I think this is a due diligence from both parties, trans and cis. It's all about creating awareness and also educating society so that people understand, we can't change people in the sense that we can't make them make the choices in life, but at the least that we can do is we can put up this information out there, and the platforms for the right um, source of information, we can just put them out there for them to be able to access it and do their own research on it.
It's like, I think it's a great example of how well you can use a social media platform,
Correct.
you know, of all the things that you can do on it.
Yes, with technology, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
But the pros is that now the world is connected. Information can be shared within a split second.
Mhm.
And I think access to information is the most important thing at this point of time. So we are really gifted to actually be in that era
Yeah.
right
Correct.
now.
Correct. And before I go into the question, I just want to let our viewers know that you can keep those comments coming and questions as well. So I will select the questions based on at which part of conversation and discussion we are at, or I will try to read out the questions at the end of the session so that Ms. Sharon can help us answer those questions. Okay. Now, my first question, and my first question is always very, very basic questions because I think we'll go into the general part and then we try to go into the more, the nuances and the specific parts of certain things. And I think when it comes to transgender issues, I feel a lot of things, a lot of prejudices, a lot of misconception comes from the terms that we use. And I think a
Correct.
lot of people need to use the right terms to address people, I think that would be the first step in trying to show that we are putting some effort to understand how you want to be treated. So can you just tell us what does it mean to be transgender?
Okay, basically, gender is a social construct. Okay, when people say gender, there is a common misconception also in Malaysia, very prominently in Malaysia, that gender is associated with what you have between your legs.
Mm,
So your anatomy, whatever that you have between your legs, determine your sex. Okay, at birth you can be assigned, because when we are born, we don't we don't tell people, or we don't tell the doctor who we are as male
true.
or female.
Mhm.
So that's why the term assigned sex. So we are assigned the sex based on whatever genitals that they observe that we have at birth. So if you're born with a penis, then you are assigned as a male person. If you're born as with a vagina, then you're assigned as a female person. So about gender, gender is actually a social construct. So to make you understand clearly, it's just like this. In the past, women, I mean, now we are very progressive, but in the past, a lot of women, they had to have hair which is below their shoulder length. Okay.
Yes.
And it's always a taboo for you to cut your hair anything short, you know,
Mm,
and like above your shoulder length.
mhm.
So that is a social construct. So to be able to qualify as a female person, you need to have long hair. And who sets these rules? Society.
Society.
It's not biological.
Yeah.
Yes. Just like biologically, not all women have the capability to have a child. Okay, biologically, not all women, it's not like women equals to having children. It
Yes.
doesn't work that way. That's not the
Mhm.
equation. However, society has constructed it that if you are a biological female, you should be able to reproduce. You should be able to have your own children. So that's why in families, um, if a woman marries a man, and if after several years there's the stigma because she cannot get pregnant, it can be the man's fault, it can be her fault,
Yeah.
but the stigma always, that it shifts to the female,
Mm.
and it kind of makes her, it kind of dequalifies her from being known as a female, so she gets treated differently
Mm.
compared to other women. So
Correct.
from all these examples, you can understand that gender is a social construct. How you need to look, how you need to represent yourself, how your voice should sound, how tall you should be, how feminine you should look, what kind of clothes you should wear. Um, we can agree that male, female, regardless of the sex, everyone has facial hair growing, bodily hair, all these things. But it's again a social construct that women should not have facial hair, women should not have hair on their hands and legs, and even if you have it, it should be like you don't have it. The solution
Yes.
is go for waxing, go
Yeah.
for laser.
Yeah.
So gender is a social construct. All right. So
Mm-hmm.
being transgender is to go against that social construct of society. Okay.
Mm.
Does this mean that the person is intentionally going against the social construct? Probably not, because you can say 50-50, because sometimes it is by birth that we do not match certain criteria of a particular sex. So
Mm.
because we do not match the assigned sex, which was given to us at birth, so that is why the way we represent our gender identity to the eyes of the people seems different. But to us, we are actually representing the correct gender identity because we know who we are. So
Mm.
those people who don't fit in the social construct are actually called transgender people.
Okay. I absolutely love how you defined it because one would expect you to give the basic textbook definition of, oh, I was born as a male, I felt like a girl, so I'm a transgender. And that is such a simplistic way, and I think it's a very, I wouldn't say that it would
Okay.
encompass everybody in it as well if you were to say it that way. And I
Yes,
love how
correct.
you straight away hit the point by saying that gender, first of all, is not binary, and it could be
Mhm.
anything. It could be anything how you feel like, but unfortunately, sometimes it seems as if like you're going against the society's construct of what one should.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now, so now I hope everyone understood what Sharan was saying, because that is something huge for you to digest. Because there's a lot of things that you need. There's a couple of layers there for you to really understand and digest. That first of all, gender is not a binary thing. It's not about whether you're feeling like a male or feeling like a female. It could be, however, it should be up to that person to express how they feel in terms of gender, and it not necessarily has to fulfill a certain society's construct.
Yeah, it's just like, saying that just because you're born with ears, you should hear.
Mm,
And the moment a person who is born deaf says that I cannot hear, it's as if you're defying society by saying that, I have ears, but I cannot hear.
mm,
So, should people get angry about this? Should people feel taken aback by this? No, because
mm,
the fact of the matter is not everyone who are born with ears can actually hear. So that's a social construct as well. So these are expectations by society that
mm,
this is norm, but
mm,
everyone is different, and you just have to respect that, and you have to accept that, and let them identify themselves and tell you who they are.
mm. Okay. So basically, for the purpose of discussion and also for me to to relate it to my second question, we can say that basically transgender means what they want to identify, what they choose to identify with will not necessarily match their biological sex.
Or not necessarily the word choose, it can be
Mm-hmm.
how they identify,
Mm-hmm.
because choice kind of diminishes
Yeah, that's true. Mm,
identity.
mm,
A lot of people actually think by choice we choose to go against society's construct, which
mm,
is
mm,
wrong, because
mm, mm, mm.
who in their right mind would actually wake up one day and suddenly say, hey, okay, I'm done being a guy. Okay, I'm going to try being a girl now. I know society hates me, but it's okay. I like them to hate me.
Exactly.
It doesn't work that way. So
Mm,
it's how the brain identifies, like just it's I think everyone has these experiences. There are certain things that as a person you cannot accept. There are certain things that you can accept.
mm,
It also builds down to food, the choices we make and things like that. And sometimes it's because of the people around us and how we were brought up. But
mm-hmm.
there are also things that it's not because of our surroundings. It's not because we have been influenced to think that way. It is also because some things are innate.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, the thing is, what people tend to think is because this seems like a now this I'm just saying this as what people used to think, like because you have this conflict between what you want to express and how you feel and how you identify with what you actually
Yeah.
have as your sexual characteristics, biological characteristics. People tend to put the transgenders together with intersex people, because that's also considered like a biological defect or a genetic mutation. So can you help us to define and to differentiate what these two means?
Okay. Just give me a second, yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So it was actually interesting when you mentioned that, because um, wait, it's lagging again. Can I have the question again? Sorry.
Okay. Basically, what I would want you to explain to us is basically the difference between transgender people and intersex people, because people tend to put them together in a group.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Cool. So one is biologically defined based on a set of chromosomes.
Mm.
And another one is something that's not visible to the eye because of the gender identity from the brain. So I'm going to go by definition of the ADAM, which is the Animated Dissection of Anatomy for Medicine Incorporated, okay,
Mm-hmm.
whereby intersex is a group of conditions where there is a discrepancy between the external genitals and the internal genitals, the testes and the ovaries. So that is the definition of intersex. So um, when you talk about, let's talk about Malaysia, for example, especially the Muslim majority community, right? When
Mm-hmm.
leaders, how to say, they give the wrong information, saying that the term kunsa, actually, we know it derives from the hermaphrodite as how it was known last time.
Mm-hmm.
And now we, medically, we call it intersex. Okay.
Mm.
So when we talk about intersex itself, it is not like a person being born with a penis and a vagina. Okay. To be honest with you, although people think that intersex means being born with two, there are 46 XX intersex and there's 46 XY intersex. There are true gonadal intersex and complex or undetermined intersex. This is by birth. This is biological.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This comes down to the very last chromosome, which is the sex chromosome.
Mm-hmm.
So they have Klinefelter syndrome, they have Turner syndrome, they have
Mm-hmm.
exomorphic syndrome. So there are people who are born, even micropenis is also part of the intersex group.
Mm.
Okay. So to say that intersex means being born with two is wrong because there are
Okay.
many variations of intersex. And to be honest, a lot of people don't dwell in this because they have already been, made to think in a certain way. First of all, they've
Mm.
already been, gender is binary.
Mm.
So when we talk about intersex, there are people who reproductively can function
Mm-hmm.
and there are people who cannot function. Okay, there are people who are born with certain conditions that may appear like the assigned sex, but then again from a certain age things start changing. Okay.
Okay. Mm.
Breast development, the way the body it shapes while you're growing up, and these are things that is not influenced by something. So that is basically intersex. So why I'm saying this very generally is because I don't like to put things in a box,
Mm.
and that's very wrong because you really need to understand that people are different. There are many variations of people, and that's how it is. That's how life is. Transgender, the difference is you are born with the sex that is not congruent with your mind.
Mm.
So, interesting thing that WHO also tells us and WPATH tells us is that the feeling and the experience is not the same as the body.
Mm.
Okay. And back in the early 2000, the Dutch Institute of Human Development also came up with a research, and they have also proven that what they did was they took the body, the corpse of a cis male.
Mm-hmm.
Cis refers to people who are not trans. Cisgender means that your brain and your body is congruent.
Mm-hmm.
Trans is the opposite. So they took the anatomy of a male, cisgender female, and a trans female. Trans woman meaning they were born with the male anatomy, but they
Mm.
recognize themselves as female.
Mm-hmm.
So when they studied the brain structure of the trans woman matched the brain structure of the cis woman.
Wow. Okay. Mm.
Yes. So this I have a clip of that actually in Facebook as well that I
Mm-hmm.
think some of you would have seen it. And yeah, so that is the understanding from even APA is that ever since the child is in the womb at during the third trimester of pregnancy, the mother's sexual hormones it kind of gives certain coding to the brain, which
Mm-hmm. Oh boy. Hold on.
is a pre. So one of it is
Sharon, you're lagging again.
okay. Yeah, yeah. I noticed. Okay.
No
Can you
worries.
see me now?
Yes, I can. And I can hear you.
Cool. So
Mm.
let me give you an example also. So let's say durian, right? The
Mm-hmm.
durian fruit, okay? If you and
Mm-hmm.
I, now, if I smelt it, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, it's very fragrant,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And I feel that I want to eat it. And then
Okay.
if you smell the same fruit that I smelled, and then you say
Mm-hmm.
it's disgusting, is it
Mm.
because our nose is different?
Definitely not. But it's the
No.
way we interpret the smell, I think.
Exactly.
Mm.
So our brain has already these predetermined codings that say this color is will appear in your eyes as such. This is how the
Mm.
brain interprets things. Just the same thing. This mother sexual hormones actually prints the gender identity on the brain in the third trimester of pregnancy itself. So
Right.
usually it prints the gender identity male, and the anatomical sex is also male. Okay,
Right.
and that's why cisgender male children are born.
Mm.
And for female children, also the same.
Mm.
It gives the gender identity female, and then the anatomical sex is also female. However, for transgender children, I mean, transgender is an umbrella term. We can actually break up to so many things, but transsexual people who usually um, experience gender dysphoria, there are sciences to prove that these children are actually born with a brain which has a female gender identity but a male body, or a
Mm-hmm.
male gender identity and a female body. So that
Mm.
is why the confusion happens when we are born. You just see like a normal cisgender, I wouldn't want to use the word normal, but
Mm-hmm.
cisgender male child or cisgender female child. You don't have to tell them that they are a boy or a girl. You just
Right.
have to do your how you parent them the same way as you parent any transgender child. The parenting, you will actually see the child moving towards the things that we expect a boy child to do or a female child to do according to their sex. Okay,
Mm.
but you will see the trans child doing something the opposite from their sex, like and
Right.
it's not wrong, because I mean this can't be defined. Actually, you can't actually even saying that they are doing something which is opposite the sex kind of sounds like a stereotype,
Yep.
because any child can do anything they want.
Correct.
If a boy child wants to play with dolls, that doesn't mean he's going to become transgender. You can't become transgender. But sometimes children, they want to express their identity based on the things that they choose. Like, for
Mm.
example, a dress
Yep.
or a doll.
Mm.
So these are studies which have been done in countries that are accepting, who are willing to learn and
Mm.
research, just like America and the UK. We have documentation of children expressing their gender identity from a very young age, like 3 and 2.
Mm.
And what's interesting is the American APA, which is the American Psychological Association. They have actually mentioned that when a child is born, the child starts thinking and identifying its gender and confirms its gender by the age of 4.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
the child already knows if the child is actually male or a female person. I mean, not by label, not by context, but by behavior, by
Mm.
likes and dislikes, by things that they can accept. So these are things that are proven, and that is why the children are like that. And when typical parents were to tell the child, you're born with a penis, so you must associate with blue. You're born with a penis, you cannot play with dolls. You're
Mm.
born with a penis, so you can only wear a shirt and pants. You can't wear a dress. when they say these things, and as the child grows up and in their eyes they see that it's different, it's something else, but then the
Mm-hmm.
parents are saying something else, that's the beginning of gender dysphoria. That
Mm,
is where child start getting confused,
mm,
because in their mind the brain is already telling them that this is who they are and they
yes.
recognize it, but the people around are already telling that no, this is wrong, this is not appropriate for you.
Mm,
So that's how it all comes down. So typically the difference between the intersex is something more biological
mm-hmm,
because of the chromosomes,
mm-hmm.
and when it comes to transgender is more of the experience and the gender identity, and gender identity is not something that can be selected.
There's no physical proof to,
There's
or
no
evidence. Yeah.
Exactly. It's I wouldn't say that it's a deformity. It's
Yeah.
not.
It's not.
It's it's something which makes you stand out, but people can't see internally why.
Mm,
You have to trust the person who is telling you this is my experience, and I think if you know the person for quite some time, you can already believe it. So it's also the duty of the parents to actually observe without influencing them to do something different because they just want to protect their self, and
mm.
children are children lah.
Yeah, because at that point, I think they'll be very, they don't think about what people would think at that point, especially at a very young age. They don't have that kind of mindset. So they tend to just express themselves and on how they think it would fit, but it doesn't sometimes gel with the parents. So I think we can go to the next part where you spoke
Mm.
about how people struggle with this identity because it's not matching their physical appearance, and then let's say for example you are born with male characteristics and you feel like you are a woman inside, and then you see girls
Mm.
outside and you feel like you want to be like them, you want to get dressed up like them, you want to be friends with them. It's so difficult because we also have this, especially in Asian context, we have this notion of guys should hang out with guys, girls should hang out with girls, and if you see a random guy hanging out with girls, you kind of start talking horrible things about the boy, especially if he's particularly effeminate, a bit
Mm.
feminine in his gestures and everything. So if did you go through those kind of struggles when you were younger?
Oh, definitely. Um, Before I share about my struggles, this is something I would expect all parents to hear me out. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't think that your child is not acting in a acceptable manner by associating with people of the opposite sex. The reason why they do that is because when we associate with people, even adults, when you choose a relationship or you choose a set of friends,
Mm-hmm.
what are the basic criterias? We forget those things. You know why? Because we do it because it's already in habit for us. So we don't see children that way. We think that
Mm-hmm.
children, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
So the main reason why children choose to be with a specific group of people, just like how we do it, is because they feel safe.
Mm.
Okay, that is the main thing. Now, to answer your question, let me give you my experiences, because I know there will be a lot of people out there who will think that, it's a 50-50 thing, But let me talk about my experiences. So, I never wanted to, I never felt comfortable associating with male male children, male people from a very young age. Okay.
Mm.
This is not something, I was the firstborn. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
my family, we have a lot of male figures. Okay. And I was not influenced like with someone, seeing them, because my parents are working parents. My grandfather is from the army. I have two very rowdy uncles
Mm.
who passed away recently. So uh, we have all these masculine figures at home. So there's nothing for me to actually see and follow. So the interesting thing is, The moment when I started associating with the female children in even from kindergarten,
Mhm.
the teachers already informed my parents that
Wow.
something is wrong with your child. You should look into your son. Your son is actually, he doesn't want to use the bathroom because he just refuses to use the bathroom. He goes in his pants and things like that. All of these things.
Mm.
Okay. The reason why I didn't want to use the bathroom as well that I can remember is because I don't feel comfortable to go into a room where everything is secluded and with boys. I mean, it's a very young age, I understand, but it's not about thinking whether are they gonna pry on me sexually or are they gonna, do something to me sexually. Of course
Yeah.
not, but
Yes.
just the comfort itself.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay. And then when as I was growing up, when I went to school, before I went into school, my parents decided to actually put me into an all boys school, thinking that if being with boys, this will change.
Mm. Mm.
Okay. So the first day of school, seeing all the boys, I actually pushed my mom down and I ran, came back home. Father gave it to me. So I had all those things. Then at that age of 7, I thought to myself, maybe something is wrong with me.
Mm.
Maybe this is what you do to your children. So I'm telling you from my experience. So I thought to myself, maybe something is wrong with me. Maybe
Mm.
I should start following them. And at
Mm.
the back of what's happening, my parents keep reminding me, walk like a boy, talk like a boy, sit like a boy. When you walk with your legs apart.
Mm.
Don't walk like a sissy. Don't behave like a sissy. They keep telling me this daily.
Right.
But automatically, naturally, the body language is as a female.
Yeah.
It's not something that I planned, okay, I'm going to do a catwalk right now. No,
Yeah,
it
I mean,
doesn't work that.
how is a 7-year-old going to learn all of that? I mean, the complexity of it. You just do what comes naturally
Exactly.
to you. Mm.
Exactly. So I don't plan these things, but that's how my body works. That's how it responds. That's the language of my body.
Mm.
So I'm going to tell this because we are public. Don't assume that same age group children cannot notice this. It's the adults who are in denial. Okay, it is the adults because of the construct of society, the expectation of how you need to believe,
And
religious
what would people
influences.
say?
What will people say? What will the relatives say? How
Mm.
they will look down at the family? Oh, your son is like this, those
Mm.
kind of things.
Mm.
So because of that, that is why parents who can see some differences in their children in not being common as other boys and girls, they tend to, like pretend as it's not happening. Okay.
Mm.
But trust me, the children or the people outside there, they know.
Right.
They know. Okay. So
Mm.
what happened to me was at the age of 14, I was raped in school.
Okay.
Okay. And it was not one guy. And they are all 1 year older than me, seniors. And I am, I was 14 and they were 15. Okay. And the reason why they did that, according to the way that I analyze the situation, is because they are also curious as to why this person is different.
Mm.
And it's not only me assuming that, they have actually told me as well, because now that we are adults, some of them, you bump into them and then they have apologized and things like that. It is something that just happened. But at that point of time, when I was 14, it was a traumatic experience. It's not something that I could share with anyone. I felt very, very, how to say, I didn't feel safe. Okay. I could only confide in my best friend, who is my best friend till today.
Mm.
So I could only confide in this one person and tell him everything that has been going on. But at the same time, I didn't want him to actually step up and do something about it, because I know how families react. I know how I didn't trust anyone. Okay. I didn't
Mm.
trust anyone. So if you're going to tell your child that, don't associate with girls, because you are sissy-ish, be with boys, you'll become manly. You don't know what the other boys are doing to your child.
Mm.
Okay, you might have the impression that those boys are young boys. It's okay, they are a bit boyish and stuff, that's about it. But you don't know in each family what are their kids exposed to, how responsible their parents are, and what are the things, because children are curious. Even though
Mm.
you're a teenager, even though you're a young teenager, you're curious, you want to try things.
Mm.
Okay, so
Mm.
when those children are exposed to those kind of things, and because to be honest, at that age, we don't expect people to react that way. So that is why it's very important to listen to your child. If your child thinks that they are comfortable with a certain gender, a certain group of people who are not from their gender, it's fine. It's
Mm.
just that you need to be there for your child and see their development. You just have to observe them. Okay, and I can bet you, I have so many friends from their childhood who always were with girls. Imagine boys being born only boy with around them all girls.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do all of them turn out to be transgender?
No.
No. Do all of them turn out to be gay? No. It doesn't work that way. People are afraid. They feel that they have to put these laws and these rules and restrictions, and they need to punish people because they still believe in this day and age that this is something that is influenceable. It's something that has been influenced by the people around you. No, it's not.
Mm.
It's not. Because if you are influenced to do something, you will have a motive or a choice to be whatever. But in this case, there's no motive, there's no choice. We don't think that, okay, we already know people hate people like this and we're going to become like that. No, it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. So yeah, it's very important to actually hear your children out. And if your child is mixing, if your child is a boy child and he mixes with girls, so what?
Mm. I think there's a question here that I think would be perfect to show right now and for you to answer because it's related to what you just explained. What would you recommend parents to do to ensure their child grows up with a healthy gender identification?
Very good question. You don't have to support you don't have to encourage them, but you support them.
Mm.
Okay, as a parent, okay, you need your presence is very important there. Don't just think I'm building my empire, I'm working, so I just need to set these rules and punish them so that they will follow in my footsteps or whatever that I want. It doesn't work that way. Trust me, it doesn't work that way. If
Mm.
it worked that way, I wouldn't be living like this. Okay, you need to consciously be there, observing your child, hearing them out, listening to them, having conversations with them. Yes, children at that day, let's be realistic. If the child can unlock your phone and watch YouTube and select their programs, don't you think the child is intelligent enough to understand certain things? So you need to be there. If your child asks you questions like, Daddy, I like unicorns. And can't I wear a dress? I like wearing a dress. So, as a parent, it is okay to say that, boy, actually, in society, usually boys wear pants and shirt.
Mm.
Pants and shirt, yeah. So, usually girls wear dresses.
Mm.
The reason it's not wrong for you not to wear it, but the reason why you don't wear it is because if you wear this and you go out the house, people are going to disturb you.
Mm.
People are going to tease you.
Mm.
Is that what you want?
Mm.
Okay. So you're not making an impression to the child already. The child is still, the child has still a lot of questions in their head, trust me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point of time, the child will start thinking, first thing, do I want to actually go out and get all this attention and be bullied and stuff? And I mean, not bullied, they will actually think like you've been disturbed and stuff. Do I want? Okay. So the next, you need to observe again. If the child comes to you and says, like, Daddy, but I like wearing a dress.
Mm.
Okay. And then you can actually say as a parent, yes, I understand, but I told you, right? If you actually did that, people
Mm-hmm.
out there will actually see you differently. How do you feel about it? You know, these are the kind of, you have to not say things, you need to ask questions, you need to observe. The moment you start observing that, you will know, as a parent you will know that it is something different.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not saying that you definitely would know, because these are things that you cannot see in your eyes lah. As
Yeah.
parents, sometimes, you will have, but you will have that feeling. Trust me, you will know, you will have that feeling.
Mm.
So that is the time you need to really be constantly with your child, see what your child wants, be there to support your child. And if, let's say, things really get out of hand doesn't mean that the child is being very, like, I'll give you an example of a situation that was documented in America. There was a child called Riley. And at the age of 2.5, the mother put the child in the shower, in the bathtub, okay, asked to wait. The mother went to bring the towel and come back. I have the video documentation also in my Facebook. So this was covered by 2020. The child was with a nail clipper holding it towards the child's penis.
Right.
And the mother is asking, Riley, what are you doing? And the child is saying, Mom, that doesn't go there.
Right.
That's at 2.5. That's at
Okay.
2.5.
Mm-hmm.
That is a different scenario to just a child saying that, oh, I like to play with dolls, or I like to play masa with with my female cousins. It's different. So you
Mm.
need to be there as a parent, you need to observe constantly. You don't have to encourage these behaviors, because that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to change anyone, but you need to observe and support your child regardless what happens. If your child says that, I like to be with the girls, and then you ask them, why you don't want to friend with the boys? Is it,
Mm.
see, they know how to play ball, they know how to do this and all that, you don't want to learn all those things?
Mm.
No. Then let go. Another day, if you see again, then you have a conversation. Why you don't like to play with boys? Is it because they are what? Tell me. And then they'll, you'll have that conversation. Oh, they're smelly, they're this, they're that. Or they'll say like, I don't like it when I'm always with this boy. He's always doing this to me.
Mm.
You need to hear. You need to listen. So thank you, Retang, for your question. And that is really how we are supposed to move forward as parents. It's something that other countries are already doing, but just because of the lack of exposure to the actual information from all the
Mm-hmm.
research and studies which have been done over the years, in Malaysia, sadly, a lot of parents don't know these things. They still,
Correct.
yeah, it's I can't blame the parents entirely also, because they are not being given the exposure and how to support children like this.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think it's also because, like what you said, when it comes, I think the main point that I caught from this is to for the parents to be able to have conversation with their children and give a bit of credit to their children, despite, I mean, no matter what age they are at, because sometimes you just have to listen to them. Okay, and like what you said in your
Yeah.
own personal experience, where your parents just shut you off when you say they just straight away snapped at you and say, you have to behave like this, you have to behave a certain way, instead of asking you why are you behaving this way instead.
Yeah.
That whole conversation is missing. And especially in Asian context, you have this whole thing about, you have to respect your elders and listen to whatever they say, despite what they say. And this thing comes into play as well. But I'm hoping that, the newer parents, the younger parents, do give this opportunity for their kids to have like a proper discourse, and, for them to say what they feel as well.
Correct. So I'm not saying that leave everything to the children, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever your children say, if your children say I want to jump off the building, then let them jump off the building. That's not what I'm
Yeah,
saying. What
correct.
I'm
Mm.
saying is, you are an adult, you
Yeah,
can analyze the situation, you
the
are
ball is still in
capable
your
of
hands.
making decisions,
Mm.
but hear them out.
Correct. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing. Yeah. And I think when it comes to this whole struggle, and you were talking about gender dysphoria earlier, And there are people
Mhm.
who think that, that you mentioned a little bit earlier on the surface, like how gender dysphoria basically means when there's a confusion and there's like, you know, you don't like what you see because you don't feel like that's connected to what you feel. But
Yeah.
um, can you like explain about that a little bit more? And would that mean that everyone who has gender dysphoria is a transgender? And would that mean that they all would want to, basically match their appearance to what they think?
Okay, cool.
Mm,
So gender dysphoria is not, you cannot stereotype that this particular group are the only ones who will experience gender dysphoria. Gender, as I said, is a social construct.
mm,
So people in general can experience gender dysphoria. Okay. There are different levels to gender dysphoria. Okay. But based on studies, based on research, we can agree that transsexual individuals mostly experience gender dysphoria. That is how
okay.
transgender is an umbrella term. We have
Mm-hmm.
transvestites who are men who impersonate as women. We have drag queens who are men who excessively portray themselves as female for entertainment. We have cross dressers who are men who just simply like to cross dress, not identify as female or whatsoever. We have people who are intersex. We have so many, gender identities. We have many forms of transgender identities. So, when we talk about gender dysphoria specifically, research shows us that it usually falls to the majority of the transsexual group. So,
Mm,
those transsexual individuals who experience gender dysphoria, the gender dysphoria experience is also different. It's a spectrum of levels. That is why some transsexuals, they are okay with their body. They are fine.
mm,
For them, I'm female. Regardless if I have a penis or a vagina, it doesn't matter. It's just
right.
something for me to go to the bathroom. Okay. Sex is sex.
Mm,
Okay, it's not for, they don't plan it out like I need to procreate, so this is the organ I need to use. It's not like that.
right.
So I think this is very uncommon for people to actually think, because a lot of people have already been put with a stereotype ever since they're young. You need to
Yeah.
grow up, you need to get a proper job, you need to marry because you have to have children and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's that's how it is. So when they experience gender dysphoria, those who experience a lower level of gender dysphoria, they are still a little bit accepting of their body. They're fine.
Right. Mm,
Okay. I had I had very very severe gender dysphoria that I'll share with you. I was very close to a trans sister at that point of time. Okay, and before I had my surgery, why I didn't have my surgery? Of course, there's many reasons to it. At that point of time,
mm,
why didn't you have your sex reassignment surgery? Why didn't you, correct your sex down there to from a penis to a vagina? Very simple. First of all, you need to have the finances. Some ministers out there very irresponsibly say things like it's 6,000, 5,000, 3,000. No, it's not.
mm,
Okay. Even if you go to Thailand, you see, if you want to do any cosmetic surgery anywhere, or you want to get some sort of treatment, there are professional doctors who are learned in that particular subject. They are a specialist who know how to do it, and definitely they will charge according to the job.
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people who study general practitioner and all these things, who may claim just because they are a doctor, they know how to do certain things just to make an
Mm,
additional side income,
yeah.
and they may charge something less, but the results is bad because they have
Yeah.
no experience.
Mm,
Okay, so we can't actually say that this is accessible and this is the price. It doesn't work that way.
mm,
Okay, so um for me, I told my trans sister that my anxiety and my depression is very very challenging at this point of time. If any time you see me date in my house, just before anyone comes to my body, If you try to call me and if I don't answer within 2-3 hours, if you come and you find that I'm dead, immediately take a knife and cut it off and dispose it. Don't let anyone see how it looks like, how it looked like, nothing, no exposure of it. It's not because it matters if they knew I had it or not. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. That is the dysphoria. The dysphoria is you cannot accept that it is there because your brain tells that your gender identity is something else. You
Yeah.
were supposed to be born with something else, but this is there and it's dysfunctional. It doesn't
Mm.
serve a purpose.
Right.
Okay, so
Mm.
this is what I told her. So just I'm not encouraging anyone to do this, but the thing is that that's gender dysphoria. That's the dysphoria level. It differs with people. Some people, they're still accepting of their body. Some people are not. When I
Mm.
went for my sex reassignment surgery, I went with that intention that I was lucky that my family supported me and I had my family, a lot of them were actually there. Like the whole room was filled with my family members, including my mom, my grandmother and all. But um, the expectation that I had was that now I've saved up, I have this money, I'm going to go for the surgery, and I don't simply go for the surgery. I of course I do my research. I speak to the doctor for several years. I find out how things are going. Then I have to go for a psychiatric evaluation, a second psychiatric evaluation. Everything is confirmed. Then the doctor will make a diagnosis. Then only the doctor. It's not that you go, you pay, and then you get it cut and you come back. It doesn't work that way. That
Right.
is what people
Mm.
assume.
It's a
So
life-changing decision. So you have to go through a couple of things to,
exactly.
to ensure you are really serious
And
about this.
there's a risk of death.
Yeah, it
There's
is a
a
very
very
complex
high risk
surgery,
of death.
right?
Correct.
Mm.
So people see these images, people see this, people hear this thing about it, but they don't actually refer to the right person who has the actual experiences. There's a lot of people who don't have experiences, first-hand experiences, are talking on behalf of us in
Mm.
Malaysia, especially. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, I went with the intention that if this surgery is not successful, at least I will die without that thing.
Right.
That was me personally. That's how I felt.
Mm.
And I know that a lot of trans people can actually relate to me as well. Okay.
Mm.
So that was how my gender dysphoria is. And the moment when I woke up and when I saw that I finally had what I should have had, I started crying. I felt so gifted. I don't know, that feeling of like, like it's just like this. Imagine being born blind.
Right.
Being born blind and the first time you do an eye transplant and it's successful after that many years and seeing you having vision.
Whoa. Yeah. Mm.
That was the exact experience. It is not like what people say, those people who don't have first-hand experience, and they say that pay money, go get it card, okay, now I can serve customers. No, it's not like that.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
It's not like that. Okay, it is a very life changing experience. And the thing is with gender dysphoria as well, right? Sometimes after the surgery, it's not necessarily that your gender dysphoria has already been cured entirely. Not necessarily.
Mm.
Sometimes it's also like the petty things, like, with me, if I talk about hair on the hand, it's like very, very fine, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
still, some people will feel like, because society has said women are not supposed to have hair on the hands,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just by seeing that, they will feel very uncomfortable with themselves.
Right.
There are many, many experiences, and it's very individual, it's very personal when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
gender dysphoria. You can't put a label on it and expect it to be like a stereotype and say that this is how gender dysphoria works.
Mm.
That is why the person who does this evaluation is actually a psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist who actually studies these things. And psychiatrical evaluation is not a day. You just walk into the hospital, you see the doctor, and then they give you a diagnosis. It's not like that. They need to listen, they need to ask you questions, they need to learn how you think.
Right.
So that is how gender dysphoria is. And it's not necessarily, even a cisgender male can also have gender dysphoria. Okay,
Mm-mm.
it is a process, and then once they start realizing themselves, they start understanding their identity, and then they figure out that, okay, I'm effeminate, okay, fine, I'm effeminate, but
Right.
that doesn't mean that I want to become a woman, or I'm going to wear a dress. It doesn't mean that way. I'm an
Mm.
effeminate guy, so what? And when they embrace it, that is where they are in acceptance with themselves.
Right.
So the experience is very different, and there's
Mm.
different levels of it as well.
I think that's the whole recurring theme of this episode is to not put anyone in a box or to define anything in a specific way because it's just too abstract and I don't think we should contain anyone in a specific, just with a couple of catchphrases and words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is perfect for my next question. I'm showing another question from Raymond because my next question would be basically, which is the topic of the episode itself. Uh, I think let's start with the general question first as to the kind of struggles
Mm,
transgender people go through in Malaysia. And then I think that also kind of will answer this question that I'm showing on the screen, which is from a legal
mm-hmm.
perspective in Malaysia, is it actually illegal to change one's sex?
Okay. So for a lot of people who don't know, the sex reassignment surgery in Southeast Asia first started off in Singapore with Professor Ratnam from the Kandang Kerbau Hospital. Okay. After that, it was Malaysia with Professor Khairuddin from University Hospital. And it was not only one hospital in the whole of Malaysia, there was a lot of government hospitals doing it as well.
Mm,
Okay. These were learned doctors who studied about this, about gender identity disorder, about this particular thing, and after that it was Bangkok. So yeah, that was how it was in Malaysia. Especially, there were transgender celebrities. There was it's not like now. It's not like now. So there are transgender celebrities who would appear in the cover of magazines,
mm,
in interviews, in shows. We have prominent transgender figures who were actresses. We had all of this in Malaysia. There was no issues. It's not something that we are talking that we are following Western culture. We are following America, picket fencing, and then holding the rainbow flag, and we're asking for something new. No, it's not like that.
right.
So in the past, even a trans woman who is Muslim akad nikah in the masjid in Johor. Okay, because it was accepted that
It's a
she
woman.
took an oath and she convinced everyone. Yeah, she's a woman. She already had her sex reassignment surgery. There's nothing to fix back down there, and she has no sexual desire toward women. So the akad nikah happened, and we also have newspaper articles on that as well. Okay, so everything was fine. And then the Center of Islamic Thoughts, what they did was, instead of learning about it and trying to, look at the Quran and Hadith and also refer back to this, to science, what they did was they had a meeting with Professor Khairuddin and his team in Masjid Negara. So Professor Khairuddin explained about gender identity disorder and things like that. Then immediately, about a week or two later, the Center of Islamic Thoughts came up with a fatwa saying that fatwa is not legislative, but they came up with a fatwa saying that it is haram for any Muslim surgeons or doctors to conduct this surgery, and it's
Mm,
haram for any Muslim patients to undergo the surgery.
Right.
This was done abruptly. My personal observation, it was for political reasons, for political agenda. It was to garner the support of the majority who are Malay Muslims. So basically, if you do something like this and you say Islam, then people will think that they are defending Islam and they will start supporting you. Okay, but nobody studies and does their research about it. They just follow a particular person because they say that it's the right thing as a Muslim to actually be against these things.
Mm.
So that happened. Okay, there was no laws saying that because the federal constitution, it protects everyone regardless you're male, female, transgender. It doesn't say he or she in the federal constitution. So every person is protected. There were no laws saying that being trans, changing your sex, I wouldn't say changing sex. That is a wrong interpretation given by people who have no experience. It's about correcting your sex to match your gender identity.
Right.
So nobody said that those things were haram, but these are things that are medically recognized by WHO. If
Mm.
you want to talk about credibility of WHO, you shouldn't be referring to WHO when it comes to COVID-19.
Right.
So
Right.
let's get that out there. So if you are going to be questioning the credibility of WHO and WPATH, the CDC and stuff, you wouldn't even consider referring to them when it comes to COVID-19. So since you
Right.
already do that, so let's move on with that. Okay. So WHO has already mentioned these things and they have already changed from the DSM-4 gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria in DSM-5 because it's no longer recognized as a disorder. Yes, in the beginning, those days, they thought it was a disorder. But the person diagnosed with it can fully function as any person. You can
Right.
work, you can make decisions, you can pay your bills, you can do all these things. You are not limited in any way. It's just the gender identity. That's about it. So it's not
Mm.
a disorder and it's already established, okay, by WHO. So in Malaysia, we have the Sharia law, which has enactment that criminalizes transgender people by saying that male impersonate as female wearing a female attire in public for immoral purposes. And mind you, the Sharia law, the context is different with each state. There
Right.
are states that don't mention immoral purposes. There are states
Mm.
that don't mention that, being out in the public. So when it really depends on the context that they use to criminalize transgender people. But based on
Mm.
the federal constitution, no, there's no law. And the fact of the matter is, whatever laws that are not, it's not in line with the federal constitution is null, it's void. Okay. And
Right.
this is something that we can actually contest. And that's what happened with the Seremban case as well. So, from a legal perspective, it is not illegal to change one's sex. Okay.
Mm.
And I think before any politician were to talk about this or anyone abruptly making any decisions to move with this, they should first take the right step to learn about what gender dysphoria is, who transgender people are,
Mm.
why sex reassignment surgery, what does sex reassignment surgery do, all of these things from a medical perspective, not from the doctors who don't have the proficiency in this particular subject, not specialized in this particular subject, who are talking on behalf of us. You should really research it from the right resources. The institutes who have been doing this research for many years, who have a lot of data on it, who have been
Mm.
learning about the subject. So yes, it's not illegal in Malaysia. Okay, let me just get that out there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm really a person who actually encourage people to do their research on the subject matter.
Mm. But the thing is, right, if it is illegal to change one's sex, because you're not going to be jailed or you're not going to be fined if they found out
I
that
think you stopped
you.
there.
Sorry, okay, I'm lagging for you. Is it? Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
right.
can.
So the thing is, yes, it is technically not legal. So they can't really like apart from the fact that they would have to, they still punish people for cross dressing, as in like, oh, your IC says you're male, you're dressing up as a female, and that's wrong. They still do that, but it's not illegal to change one's sex. But everything that comes with changing one's sex, for example, I am a female. I look like a female right now, but I can't change my gender, my sex on my IC, for example.
Mm.
Those kinds of things are still not gelling with the fact that it is not illegal. So there's like,
Yeah, exactly. So you see, the whole reason why the trans community, those who experience gender dysphoria, who have undergone their sex reassignment surgery already, who has a female anatomy, who's living entirely this way, the reason why they are fighting to change the, it's not something new, it's something that has been done in
we
JPN
have
before.
regressed.
um, Yes, we have regressed. That's about
Yeah.
it. So we're
Mm,
not asking, it's not because we want to prove ourselves as female. We have nothing to prove to anyone.
right.
Okay? We have nothing to prove to anyone. You want to tell we are male, you want to tell we are female, you are not seeing our genitals, you're not having our experiences, you are not in our head, you cannot identify anything, you're not living in a reality where you can scan my brains. No, so we're not proving anything to you, okay? But it's restricting us from living a wholesome life, just like anyone else. How?
Mm,
Why you cannot get married? It's not about marriage, okay? It's not about getting legally married, getting a guy and legally having sex with him. No, it's not about
no.
that.
Yeah.
Trans people, in my experience, right? I'm anemic, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and there was one time my hemoglobin level dropped to 5, and luckily my trans sister was with me, and she took me to a government hospital, okay, and the nurses were making fun of me in front of the public, and I
Mm,
can't move. I was in a
right.
vulnerable state because I can't move. I
Yeah.
can't, I can't move. I can't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
My body was frozen, and they put me into the temporary ward and they put me beside the male people. So the male patients. So my trans sister said that she's anatomically female. Can you put her with the women? And they say no. We have to follow the IC.
Right.
Okay. And then when the nurse comes to help me because I was about to urinate and things like that, when she saw my sex organ, she was like frantic. She got shocked, and then she started calling all the other nurses, and then pushed me to the female section.
Right.
Like, why do you put us in that situation? Why do we have
Yeah.
to go through those
It's such
things?
an insulting and humiliating situation to be in.
Yes, trust me. And when there are unethical medical practitioners, doctors who actually speak against these things without having proper knowledge on the subject matter, without having experience with
Right.
actual transgender people, you
Mm.
know, it's very depressing, and that is the reason why a lot of trans individuals, when they are sick, when they are not well, they don't want to go to the hospital. They don't want
And
to
that's
go.
sad.
So
And that's sad because
you ask
as a human
questions.
being, you have the rights to, to get medical attention when you're not feeling well.
Exactly. And the treatment, which is, I mean, to be honest with you, this past 1 2 years, things have improved. Okay,
Okay.
thanks to certain individuals in the Ministry of Health who has engaged with the community and had like briefings with hospitals and clinics how to be sensitive towards transgender individuals. Yes, there is a little bit of improvement. Okay, you're asking why HIV is prevalent in the trans community. HIV is prevalent in the trans community because of things like this.
Yeah.
When people, when people, first of all, you restrict their access to health, you humiliate them, you embarrass them. Okay, someone like me, I would just like kind of tie my hair and just sit down, or I'll just leave my hair like that. I'll just sit down there and wait for my turn for to see the doctor. You wouldn't know. I'm
Right.
not coming there and telling you, hey, I'm trans, hey, I'm trans, hey, I'm trans, I'm different, I'm different. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just minding my work, waiting for my turn to see the doctor.
Right.
And when a nurse comes out and calls your legal name out, your male name, calls it out like that, okay, you feel that, oh, that's the name in your IC, it's fine.
Mm.
But you don't know what happens next. What
Correct.
happens next is from the people there behind us, there can be someone who would take advantage of the situation. They will know, oh, this is looking like a beautiful girl, but then has a male name. Okay. Then when we walk out of the hospital, they will be following us. Okay. It might get nasty. We have had all those experiences. Listen it
Right.
from us, out from us, not from the people
Mm.
who are not us.
Mm.
So that those are the reasons why it is necessary for, if let's say you're calling a patient, give them a number, you call the number. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Okay. When you call people out with their legal name in the hospital, even that day when I was talking, when I was explaining to you about that day where they put me in that ward issue, right? They took me for X-ray, and there was a person who, the person who's actually taking the X-ray is shouting out in the room to the other nurses, "Hey, this is not a girl, this is a boy, lah. Look at the name."
Right.
Just imagine in that vulnerable state that you cannot fight back, you cannot say anything because your body is not moving, your mouth, you cannot say anything.
Mm.
How does it feel?
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why we are asking for our gender to be corrected in the IC is not because of, oh, I want to show that I'm marrying a man, I'm divorcing this fella, I'm going to have another fella, you know. It's not because of that at all. Okay.
It's just so that you don't
Trust
get
me,
all
the
these
moment
things
you
on a
legalize,
daily basis.
correct. Trust me, the reason why most men who, you know, kind of, I'm not blaming all men, but there are men who take advantage of transgender people, okay, saying love and then being with them and then cheating them and going and all that. The reason why this happens is because there's nothing legal.
Right.
They will think twice if they were going to do that to a cisgender woman,
Mm.
but they
Mm.
won't think twice when they're doing it to a trans person because there's nothing legal. End of the day, if they shout out and tell people that this trans woman came on that person, took advantage of that person, people are going to believe him.
Yeah, because there's no legal marriage.
Okay.
You
So
can't divorce them legally. There's no prenup. There's no any legal documentation. So it's everything basically it's
yes,
his words against everything.
correct. And even when discussing about rape, okay, they they look at it as a biological penis entering a biological vagina by force, you
Yeah,
know,
that's the
without
definition. Yes. Mm.
that's the definition. So how about trans women who have already underwent sex reassignment surgery, who have a vagina, who's being raped? There's no
Mm.
law to protect it. And
Right.
you know, when you do things like this, and then when you actually kind of suggest certain laws to be amended, and then when they come back to you and they say things like you did it to yourself,
Right. Victim blaming.
it's very hurtful because
Mm.
you don't know what we went through and why we did it. We definitely did not do it for a guy
Right.
because you're spending more than 20,000, okay, and you are not immediately everything is good. You have to go through confinement, the
Mm.
pain. It's you have changed something, you have corrected something in your body. Just imagine like those cancer women who lose their breasts
Right.
or lose an arm.
Mm.
Okay, just imagine how it feels like. It's a change. Okay,
Mm.
it is something which has been changed, but it's not for purposely, it's a correction. Okay,
Mm.
so it's all of this we experience it. Is it because we just want to satisfy men? Definitely not.
Right.
So we need to have certain laws that, I mean, the federal constitution is good enough, but then I think there can be laws that protect us, that
Right.
protect us as individuals as well. And we
Mm.
need to get rid of all these laws, even though Sharia law that decriminalizes, that criminalizes transgender individuals and all that, I think is outdated. We need to get rid of all these things. It is because these enactments exist, that is why these people can actually use it against us
Mm.
and influence the public to actually think that we are committing a crime.
Mm-hmm. It's all for personal agendas, and
Yeah.
so I think
And you see, the best part of this is when, sorry,
no, it's
you were
okay.
saying?
Continue.
No, I think the best part of this is when these so-called people who want to talk about trans people, right, when they interview trans people, they always go to the lorongs.
Mm.
Okay, they always seek the trans people who are not empowered, who are not educated, they didn't have access to education, probably uh, uh they're living in the streets, because they never had their opportunity. They never had their opportunity and ended up in a very pressing manner that their life.
Mm.
They are the ones that they target when they have these interviews, okay? And some of them even pay them because they need money to live, so they
Right.
don't care. Dignity, what? You already destroyed everything. There's no dignity, okay? There's
Mm.
nothing.
Mm.
Okay, so you go interview them, and then that's what you say
Portray,
should
you
represent
show in
what the
media. Yeah.
community is, whatever that they,
Mm.
yeah. It doesn't work that way.
Correct.
You should come to individuals who are educated, who know the right things to say, but you hardly see that happening in Malaysia.
Mm. And I think going back to the fact that you were saying how trans people have one of the highest HIV cases is also because of the systemic oppression, because they don't have opportunities and they have no choice but to resort to sex work. And it's just like a vicious cycle, because they don't have education. Even if they do sex work, they don't do it in with proper
Yes,
protection, with proper education for that, and it just goes
correct.
on and on. I think finally, I would say, I mean, as a final question, would be, as a community, or even as a cisgendered female, because there's this whole new thing where
I think we're
under,
lagging again.
right? Can you hear me now? Hello,
I
can
think
you
we're
hear me now,
lagging
Sharon?
again. Ah, yeah, I can hear you now. Okay, cool.
Okay, so basically, I think, as a maybe to like properly conclude this, because we've spoken about the struggles, and we've spoken about,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a very enlightening episode, because I learned a lot of things, even after reading all your posts on Facebook. I feel like I still learned a couple of things and really opened my eye on certain things, certain issues. But as a community, how can we
Mm-hmm.
be better allies? Because even when it comes to the feminist movement, right, as a cisgender female, there's also even this radical extremist movement who don't want to include trans women as part of their fight. The term TERF, basically, trans exclusionary radical feminism and things like that. But
Yeah.
I think we're just talking about in general, as a community, as cisgender people, who don't have to go through the struggles that you go through. And I don't think we can even begin to imagine the kind of struggles that you have gone through, because I don't think it's right to even say I understand what you're going through. There's no way we can understand it. We can only empathize. So what are the ways that we can be better or good allies for the transgender community?
I think this relates to a recent post that I actually made on my Facebook. I actually mentioned that, when women or men face certain things like rape, abuse, violence, assault, all these things, right? If a trans person or an LGBT person, okay, let's get it out there as well that trans people are not entirely the representatives of the LGBT community. LGBT doesn't mean that if the person is gay, that means that person will become trans. That is all misconception. It's a whole different topic that
That's a whole
I
different
will
topic
leave
we
it
need
up
to
to
talk
you guys.
about. The difference
Yes,
between
so that's
gender
a whole different
identity and
topic.
sexual orientation. Oh my God,
Sexual
yeah.
orientation. Yes. that's a subject of its own. But coming back to what I was trying to say, okay, um, this 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 the situations that the cisgender people experience, we as trans people or even the LGBT community in general, what I noticed was we empathize with the situation. We defend these people. We have personal experiences as well that where a woman is, if she's mistreated by her husband, a trans person being her support, getting her, protecting her, getting her to the police station and things like that. We have all those things. The LGBT community is more sensitive to this mistreatment,
Mm.
okay, and we step up and we talk and we action when it comes to cisgenders becoming victim to these abuses, violence and stuff, okay. But the cisgender people, don't get me wrong, there are only a handful. I'll be very honest, we're only a handful, but this handful have been a very great support. They have been a very good ally. They have been there for us. Okay.
Mm.
This handful of cisgender people who has been very supportive of the LGBT, again, support, encouragement, two different things. They're
Mm-hmm.
not encouraging you sexually to have sex with, whatever, it's not that, but they have been very supportive towards your well-being, towards the basic human things, okay. We don't get that from the cisgender people
Right.
majority, okay.
Mm.
The cisgender people probably, we know as adults, we know what is right, what is wrong, okay,
Mm.
undoubtedly. Let's not put let's not justify our actions by quoting religious texts, which has been interpreted, by other people. Let's not do those things. Let's just talk about being human, okay.
Mm.
Being human, knowing there's an abuse towards a trans person or any part of the LGBT community, we hardly see a non-LGBT person stepping up. The ones who do, we really appreciate them and they are a handful. But I think it's about time for the cisgender people to also step up. And one thing that I would like to highlight about Sajad's case, which is happening right now,
Mm.
I'm very impressed. Okay. We're not going to talk about right or wrong or whatever, that is also a different topic. But
Right.
one thing I'm very impressed when I actually read the comments, right? Even the majority race in Malaysia, a lot of them are now stepping up to talk about it
Right.
the right way. A
Mm.
lot of them can already, knowing it and keeping it inside is one thing, but a lot of them are already voicing out saying that
Yes.
there are other things happening and this is a diversion. And we know they always use transgender people as a diversion when it comes to all these problems that they don't want to resolve with the public when they are already caught in action. Okay, all these problems, they always use transgender people and LGBT people as a scapegoat. Okay, and the general public knows that, but now they are opening up and they are voicing it out.
Right.
That is something I was so impressed about. And I think this is the time that everyone has to do that. Okay. If you know people are not hurting you, they're not hurting themselves, they are
Mm.
being themselves because this is who they are. And you have no say because you don't know them personally and you have to accept the fact that you don't know everything. Okay. No matter if you have a PhD in something, there are things for you to learn.
Right.
There are experiences, there are stories that you may not know.
Mm.
There are texts that you can take as a guide, but experience speaks louder than those words.
Right.
Okay. The moment you come into acceptance with that, that is already like a big achievement for an individual.
Mm.
So I think it's high time that people start stepping up and voicing out the things that are wrong and supporting for the right causes. I'm not saying that you need to take the flag, the rainbow flag, and run around picket fencing. You don't have to have a gay pride or whatever. We're not asking for all that. Basic human rights,
Mm,
basic treatment as a person with dignity, access to
mm.
education, access to employment, access to healthcare, being treated with dignity. If you find all of these things are being compromised, talk about it.
I think that was so well put. That was perfect. And I think that's the only thing we need to do. That's bare minimum actually.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you so much, Sharon. We are almost reaching 1.5 hours of discussion.
I know, right? This topic is not like something that you can talk within an hour. There's a lot
Definitely
of
not.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of things, but the most important thing is the core. I think we
Mm-hmm.
already touched on that, and
Mm.
I hope that we were able to educate people who watch this interview. And I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for you to actually bring up this in your platform, so at least we are able to reach out to people and educate them.
My way of speaking out. But
Go,
thank you so
Tammy.
much. But thank you so much for like, not only to educate us, but for you to come on this platform, on a public media, a public arena like this, and to be so vulnerable and to share your experiences, bad experiences, and still being strong and trying to put your things out there, because sometimes yes, it is so difficult to say things, certain things, you may be still traumatized about it. And the amount of trauma transgender community go through is too much. And if you don't say
Yeah.
it, people are not going to know. If you sugarcoat it, people are not going to know how intense and how difficult and how bad it is actually. So thank you so much for being so raw and being so vulnerable in this episode. I really appreciate that.
No, thank you, Tammy.
So thank you so much once again. So, and I hope everyone else, I do see quite a number of questions, which I don't think I can share everything, but I think Ms Sharan would love to just reply the comments later on under the video. It's on Facebook. They are all Facebook comments.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much. Because I think if
No
I were to
problem.
if I were to show all those questions, I think it'll drag to 2 hours.
We can take another half an hour to 1 hour.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Yeah, I'll try my best. Okay, with the limited time that I have, I will try my
Mhm.
best to get back to you. And thank you for your questions. Thank you for watching the show. Thank you for your time. And education doesn't just stop here. I hope that all of you become advocates for the right reasons, and you advocate these things out there within your circle, within your friends, your peers, your colleagues. Um, and if you have transgender children and you are parents, at least I hope that that actually gave you some insights of answering those questions, those tough questions. What should I do?
Mm,
Those kind of
mm.
things. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sharon. So I'll be like, I think you can. Okay, I think I'll remove you. All right. Thank you so much. Good night. Okay. Thank you so much for everyone for watching in. I still see like about quite a number of you still sitting here and watching this show after 1.5 hours. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. So don't forget, you can find the rest of the episodes on the Woman of Essence channel, YouTube channel. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe that channel. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. Good night and have a good weekend.